on your side.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.
At 8 minutes after 9 o'clock, conversations continue this morning. Is coming up, is it not?
And it is coming in real quick. But remember, one of the toughest thing to do in this life is knowing what to get your dad. It's always a difficult thing. But this year, Woolworths is saying that you've got the cheat code. Let's make this Father's Day iconic. Woolworths is giving you 30% off men's, off men's sleepwear, knitwear, jackets and coats until 16th of June. So hurry up. Time is not on your side. So whether your dad is the stay cozy type of dad, step out looking sharp and kind, you'll find the perfect gift for him. Let's just make sure that this Father's Day extra special by making sure that you get your dad the perfect gift. Visit the nearest Woolworths store and get him something he'll low-key love and high-key brag about. Making fathers brag out here. You know, Mzee Aseto, seeing you. Terms and conditions apply. Woolworths says it is the difference. The difference, making sure that your dad low-key, cozy, but happy.
Indeed.
And there's a fun fact. On Father's Day, the traditional flower on Father's Day is a rose.
Is it?
Yes.
Yeah.
And red roses
Just to be.
are for living fathers, and white roses are for fathers who have departed. So now we know. So for the ones who have departed, white roses. For the ones living, red roses. For those who are wondering, what else can your company?
Yeah.
That's special gift, the jacket, the tie, and all that. You can also buy flowers. Have you ever received flowers?
Me? Yes. My dad used to work in a flower farm, so he used to bring flowers home a lot. Yeah.
So you know about flowers?
He low-key loves. My dad loves flowers. Yes. Yeah.
Do you?
I do.
So you
I
know
buy
a lot about
flowers. I buy flowers every 2 weeks for my house. Yeah.
Oh, look at that. Well, okay.
Interesting.
Do you?
No, I'm not. To be honest, I didn't grow around them anyway. Growing up is when I discovered that, loving flowers and buying flowers once in a while is romantic.
It's romantic.
So, yeah, that's my only interaction with flowers.
Okay. Well, here we are, and getting into a budget 2025-2026 conversation. The budget is going to be read tomorrow, rather on Thursday. And the questions around, Mwananchi and how they then will access, how they will then have access to certain things as we go along. The year starts to build, and the budget has been in the making, coming in from September 2024 and coming into 2025, when we are saying, okay, we're getting into a new fiscal year, we get into the next 12 months, and here we are with an opportunity to then get to how the spend of the country will be. Now, as this happens, the questions are, you talked about it being a Mwananchi, exclusive budget. We talk about it then being able to help Mwananchi here and there. But the questions then remain that, is it going to be just that? Our guest will join us in a short while, and then we'll be able to have that conversation around this with him, and then what it will mean for that. But what do you think is in the minds of people when, the numbers are being crunched and we're going from point A to point B? What actually happens when we're looking at those numbers? Who then takes these things into consideration? Does it, what you do on your table every night when you're eating with your children, when you're taking them to school, what does it do to your mind when you think about the numbers and it comes out in public that this is what the country is actually going to go towards?
When you just think about it, and even when you speak to individuals out there, one thing is the budget that is there is being touted to be Mwananchi friendly, but there are other hidden costs that have been intelligently hidden so that you just don't see it. You know what I mean? So here we are talking about stuff like inputs in farm inputs will automatically see cost of food go up. That would lead to inflation and just making life of Kenyans difficult. But even when you think about that, now we're talking about individuals from NHIF that the government does not have 9 billion shillings for individuals who are let go. Talk about healthcare as well. There is not enough budget that goes into that. So one asks, the budget that is coming in, how Mwananchi friendly is it if it is not addressing the priorities Mwananchi has?
And you know, when you talk about civic education, I was just trying to open, as you're talking, Rosenjerry's webpage that was highlighting key things that she felt were very, very important. There's some key things there. I'm just opening it right here because you're looking at the budget and then you're thinking, so we've had perspectives from the business community. There's what concerns the business community. There's what concerns the manufacturing sector. There's what is concerning to education, for example, security. So you're hearing all these voices. But then there is the Wanjiku's voice. There is the Mwananchi wa Kawaida's voice and what affects them. And it's just the common things, the day-to-day. You wake up in the morning, you have to use transport to go to work, you have to eat, you have to pay rent, you have to pay electricity, you have to pay school fees. So you're looking at the budget. And you know, someone was arguing and saying, hey, why do we overcomplicate things? You're looking at assuming you have your house budget, now expand it to like a national budget. There are things that are essential, there are things that are priorities. But because of how it's drawn and the complexities around understanding all the nitty-gritties and reading the fine print and the devil is in the detail, what is missing and that, it then makes it hard for the Mwananchi wa Kawaida, in quotes, to digest what is in it. And looking at, you know, the budget, and listening to, because I've had a chance to, interestingly, there's so many forums in this country where you have Bunge la Wananchi, you've got these forums where people out there in town, you'll find people having very intellectual conversations. They're having very sober conversations around what's happening in the country, minus the politics. You're just looking at cost of living, and you would stand and listen. You'll go to places like Jivanji, Ambassador in town, and the other places. You'll go listen to how people are expressing themselves, and you find there are people actually who are really, really smart. They know what's going on in this country, and they have a say, and they have an idea of what's going on. So I'm just trying to open this, taking a bit of time. And also, you're looking at the cost of, the issue of taxation. And on Sunday, I was just talking to someone who was telling me, anybody who has a pay slip is really, really suffering. Because you're talking about investing and you're looking at what's coming in terms of pay, what's being deducted, and then from those deductions, the diversions to those deductions. So you're told you're deducting this and it's going to do this. Then out of that, it morphs into something else. So there are also those concerns where, as you're talking about the budget and what we are counting to the different things that concerns us, what you're deducting from us, what is it going to do? How is it working?
We say we're deducting it for affordable housing, but then again, there are talks to change it to start funding other things. So there is no clarity exactly, even when it comes to budget policy, government policy vis-a-vis the budget that is being drawn. So, interesting.
And of course, look, so all of these things come into play. And then when we're talking about a Mwananchi budget, we have to bring these things into, consideration. What happens? Who is taken into consideration? And our guest is here, even at this time. It's good to have you in the room. Okay. So things are actually just frozen. Good to have you again. And also just to then be able to go over some of these issues. Simiyu, karibu sana. Bunge la Wananchi often talks to people, and we get some of these insights here and there, and then being able to find out what it is that folks think. Tell us about what you've been able to see so far. Are we looking at a budget that then takes Wananchi into consideration? But before we do that, we want to welcome you to the show with today's proverb. Dennis is in Uganda, and he'll tell you what the Ugandans are saying, and we would like your interpretation of that.
Ugandans are saying, the teeth are smiling, but is the heart?
The teeth are smiling, but is the heart? Okay. So, in my interpretation of that, I think it means something could be good for you, but actually, like the situation we are in right now, you could be profiting from something, but it's not morally right. It's nice when you are doing it, but morally it's not good. That's the best I can say right now. Yes.
Okay.
Remember, you're never wrong.
Your opinion is never wrong.
Yeah.
Exactly. The voice on the cost of survival is what we're looking into today, Joachim. And even as we have this conversation, people are trying to get by, isn't it? People are looking for a situation whereby whether it's you're running your business or whether it's your personal life, you're trying to actually get by. Tell us from your point of view, as we look into this budget into the next year, what are we what are we hoping that would be the voice that would then spur on survival?
The situation, according to the normal Kenyan, the Wanjiku, I think it's going to get more tough because we understand that right now there are no, the USAID is not sponsoring things like health. So we would expect as the ordinary Kenyans that the government would inject some more money into that program. But according to what we are having as budget right now, they have actually reduced the money in the health sector. And you can see that there will be no funding for the critical illness fund. So people who depend on medical health, care for them to be alive, they will have to dig deep into their pockets for them to survive. And that's just one. The other thing, when we talk about education, we can see that there would money for invigilation and examinations have been reduced from the education budget. That only affects the common mwananchi because they are going back to their pockets every time on each and everything. Fertilizer subsidy fund is not there. So at the end of the day, the Wanjiku will have it rough to just take care of their day-to-day lives. And as this is happening, you can see that their pay slips are also raided. The deductibles are so much. And the issue is not actually the money that's being deducted. The issue is after deducting the money from the Wanjiku's pay slip, where do you take it? In other countries, people pay taxes and they see it in terms of good roads. Education is okay. In terms of healthcare is working, agriculture is booming. But we are living in a country where you give money to a government, but you are very sure that you will not get any returns. And my biggest issue with this budgeting process, like the finance bill that we are talking about, we understand that the finance bill is all about revenue raising measures. It doesn't matter how much money we are going to raise, as it is right now, debt is going to gobble up almost half of it. So what we are saying are just symptoms of a bigger problem. And the bigger problem, if we don't get it right, even if we change everyone, we have changed almost everyone except the president. We have reshuffled, even if we reshuffle the president today and bring someone else without getting it right with the, what is it that is wrong? And in my own opinion, we need to get the issue of debt right. Because it's now taking almost everything. This financial year, we are going to pay almost 1.9 trillion out of a budget of 4.3 trillion. We are remaining with almost 2.4 trillion. Then government operations will take 600 billion. Salaries will take 400 billion. Counties will take 400 billion. You see that we have a deficit of almost 900 billion, which means that we'll go back and borrow. Before we borrow that money, my suggestion would be, why don't we make public what we borrowed first? Parliament approvals, who is the lender, status of repayment, both principal and interest. Once we do that, we will know that this is the money we borrowed and this is the project we did with it. So that in futures we look for money to cover the deficit of our budget, we know that it's actually coming to work for the sovereigns of the country. But as it stands today, people are taking money on behalf of the country, but they end up in offshore accounts. So this budget that we are saying, it's not actually for us. It's magari ndogo ndogo ambazo they are being used around by Uber.
Yeah.
They are going to shoot in the price.
145%
Yes.
increment.
So I wonder what is the reasoning. Let us now assume this government has very brilliant people for a minute. What is it that they want to achieve? I think they went and sat down and say, hey, Kenyans are buying this type of vehicle so much. When we impose tax on it, we will reckon some good money. But they have not thought about why are the Kenyans going for this particular vehicle. It's because it's affordable. When you impose taxes on it, they will look for alternatives, which means they are not going to get the revenue they are looking for. And they are only making it harder for the common Kenyan to manage their lives.
You see, Joachim, you've said that this budget is not a budget for Mwananchi. And when you speak like that, speaks to the priorities of the country, the priorities of those who are preparing this budget, and the government's priority pretty much on what is important to it. Because here we talk in terms of how much we're spending vis-a-vis what you're putting into development, and that we need to still go back and borrow more debt at 900 billion shillings, almost a trillion. And with that, there is the subject of odious debt that no one is explaining to us where the debt that we have and who took that debt, what that money did. No one is coming clear with that. And Kenyans are just asking a simple question. Where are our priorities?
Our priorities are very skewed. They're actually upside down. Because I want to read you the statement of the Auditor General about the odious debt. She says that the state of public debt is only included as annexure in the consolidated fund with no financial statements to show the debt position. Consequently, it's not possible for her to ascertain the amount redeemed, current values, and therefore validity of the public debt. The Auditor General has no legal accounting record of the debt, which is why we are reminding the Minister for Treasury the day he was being vetted. One of the things he said he will do is to publish the debt register.
Yeah.
So why doesn't he do that? The issue, we have a very big problem with the integrity of our leaders. And I think he's unwilling to publish this debt register because there are no projects. Because in our constitution, you don't just borrow. You have to borrow money that is tied to a certain project. And if you do not have a project to show, you will be unwilling to even publish the debt register. And in most cases, if you publish the debt register and it paints your boss in bad light, you will not do it. That's why I think when he took office, realized that publishing that register will
Taint it both negatively?
Yes. And I look at who welcomed the Minister for Treasury in office. Who was his first guest? It was someone from IMF and the World Bank.
Yeah.
That tells you the problem we are in today. That the problems we are in, some of them are being pushed by external forces. I tend to believe that we have an extractive system that is meant to put Kenyans where they are, in dire poverty. It's by design. Because I've been looking at where we've come from as a country and why are we in this problem. why do we keep on getting the same problems even if when we change CEOs of our country?
Yeah.
And I looked at some history. I remember in 1888, when the British wanted to access our resources, they brought here a company called Imperial British East African Company, whose work was to manage resources. They built this railway not to serve the African people, but to allow them to get into the interior so that they can access African resources and ship them to their country.
Where do taxes come into play, even taking that into consideration?
Taxes are here to curtail your prosperity. I've told you that poverty in a country such as this, it's a multi-billion enterprise for other people. And it actually makes politicians look like gods. So that every time when he comes to campaign, he will tell you that I will build this road. So they come up with punitive tax measures to curtail your prosperity. I told you it's an extraction system. And they have extracted everything. Now they are coming for your coins in your pocket. So they have come up with a way of extracting everything from your pocket. And that's where taxes come in. First, they get your president to sign these debts. Then it's a direct pipe for money because it's tax in advance. Once the president takes debt, it's tax in advance. The taxes we shall pay in 2036, we've already taken loan for them. And that's why we need to get this issue of debt right.
I have a question.
Yes.
Because you've talked about the issue of debt and we can discuss fiscal priorities, and there's an argument that either a budget is people-centered or it's a numbers game only meant to direct its attention to external creditors. My question is, because we're looking at Wanjiku's voice now on this budget, if we go into the details, it's easy to get lost on where we are. We know we are in debt and the debt is increasing. But what, in your opinion, are the top 3 or the top 4, top 5 areas in the 2025-26 budget that you believe completely ignore the Mwananchi's voice or the Mwananchi's everyday struggle?
When they talk about moving basic commodities like bread and milk from zero-rated product to exempt, one of the experts told me that a zero-rated product means that the taxes imposed on that product can be refunded back to the manufacturer. But when you make it exempt, it means he cannot be refunded. The manufacturer cannot get the refund of the taxes. So they put it on the consumer.
Okay.
So the consumer will incur a lot more cost. So it affects you and me, people who consume these products every day. That if you take a packet of milk every morning and you've been spending 65 shillings, you'll have to add 10 shillings more. If you use 3 packets, then you will have to look for 30 shillings more to add so that you can be able to raise above the fray. Another issue I mentioned about health. Pharmaceutical products are going to increase in price. And we Kenyans depend on them. Health is a crucial part of our daily life.
Absolutely.
So if we increase the prices of pharmaceutical products, who are we affecting? We are affecting the Kenyans. Because everything that is not working, the people who are affected are the poor people.
Indeed.
Because a member of parliament has a comprehensive insurance. They rarely step there in these public hospitals. You saw the governor of Nakuru said she couldn't be operated by junior doctors, so she had to fly to the US. So these problems do not actually affect them. It affects people who are living below the poverty line.
Yeah.
And that's why we are trying to make them remember that you are put in those offices by these people that you are punishing by these taxes.
So you're saying the cost of medicine is going to go up?
Yes.
You go to your local chemist in the estate.
For someone who just uses Panadol for headache, they will not see the pinch. But someone who depends on medicine to be alive, there is someone who goes for dialysis 2 times a week. There are people who are asthmatic. They will dig deeper into their pocket. And with our health system that is not working, it will affect you because they see you on Spice and you look like you have some good money. You will be getting a lot of messages of hey, help me here. I'm stuck. I need medicine and I don't have money. So the money you have in your pocket that is meant to do your own things, you will have to give it out because you will feel empathy for these people. So it all boils down to the cost of living for the ordinary Kenyans.
So you've mentioned consumable products.
Yes.
You've also mentioned pharmaceutical products. What else do you think is completely being ignored and that will affect the Mwananchi?
I talked about fuel subsidy fund that is also missing, and farm inputs, which will make also food products to increase. Because if a farmer incurs more cost in producing their products, then it means 1 kg of unga will go up in price. 1 bucket of waru will go up in price. Definitely everything, because every crop uses fertilizer. And when we talk about farm inputs, it means seeds and everything. So they are actually coming for our lifeline, our survival. I don't know if it's intentional, because a government is meant to create an environment where people can
Thrive. Essentially.
where you can open a business, and you can actually access credit if you need it to boost your business. But then this government is doing a lot of domestic borrowing. When you go to a bank and you are given a loan at a rate of 20%, you will not afford, because they have the biggest customer in the name of the government. Where you are getting salary, it's being slashed. The things you depend on for life, they are going up in price. That's why people are bitter.
Let's take a break at this point, because we're looking then essentially at then what it would mean when essentially the government takes out its calculator and puts things on a budget line and says, this is the way in which we're going to run the country going into the next 1 year. What does it actually mean for the people? Joachim Simiyu is a governance advisory and policy analysis expert, Bunge la Wananchi, and we're talking budget 2025-2026 and what this means for Kenyans. 23 minutes to 10 o'clock. We'll come back and talk about this as we come back from this break. Don't go away. I&M Foundation says, you know what? 2% of all our annual profits every year put it towards making a better future for Kenya. The I&M Foundation is vested in this. For the past 5 years, they've done this, investing a significant amount of the bank's annual profit, the highest commitment in the Kenyan banking sector, into impactful programs. So their work focuses on vital areas like education and skills development, economic empowerment, and enabling giving. But today we want to highlight their leadership in environmental conservation. The I&M Foundation is dedicated to protecting our precious natural heritage through strategic partnerships and community-driven initiatives, ensuring a sustainable future for all. They believe in impact, and are achieving it through focused action. As we renew our pact to keep impacting, learn more about the I&M Foundation's vital work and how you can potentially collaborate by visiting inmbankgroup.com/foundation to find out more. And we still continue our conversation this hour. Joachim Simiyu is a governance advisory policy analysis expert at Bunge la Wananchi, and we're looking at budget 2025-2026 and asking ourselves questions around the cost of survival. Where does public participation come in all of this to say, it's too much, we can't handle it here? Public participation as a tool to essentially get the citizens' voice. What do we do?
You remember Rosenjeri was arrested. Essentially for bringing information home to the people. So if a person who is trying to educate people about this budgeting process is put behind the bars, that tells you the attitude of government towards public participation. You can see that the taxes themselves are not favorable to the people. So if you allow people to put their voices in it, they will not give it a chance for you to do to propose such kind of taxes. So what you do is, and if you look at the finance bill, it has a lot of legal and economic jargon, so that the normal mwananchi can struggle to understand what is really going on. So people who are experts in finance matters, they are trying to break down the bulk of language for people to understand, so that they can also have an opinion. But then they are facing brutality from the government. And again, the person, like the chair of the finance committee, is the one running public participation forums. Like, this person wants this thing to go through. How do you trust him to carry out public participation forum? Why don't we look for neutral bodies, or give it to people to actually go through it without interference? So public participation is not a priority by government. It's not.
So you talk about public participation that is being led by the chairperson of the budget committee, right? And here now is a question of public participation that Kenyans are having out there and discussing these issues. You talk about Jerry and what she's doing and the conversations that are taking place. But now there is Bunge la Mwananchi, where you belong, where Kenyans speak on a daily basis. What are Kenyans in these spaces saying about the budget, perhaps?
Kenyans are saying reject the... Actually, I came across a statement from one of the young people, a group of young people who had raised concerns about this whole budgeting process. And they are saying that it's unconstitutional, actually. They have bypassed Article 221, which stipulates transparency in both revenue and expenditure estimates. We are only told about expenditure, but revenue estimates are not really clear. So, and this is also a concern that was raised by the control of budget. So, as we participate in this whole conversation, we are airing out our dissatisfaction. Our expectation of government is not being met. And therefore, we are calling on government to listen to the people. When we say this is wrong, why we don't expect that they will listen, because they are determined to make things go through the way they are. And I started by saying the person who welcomed Minister John Bad in office is people from IMF and World Bank. It means our government and the leaders in our government are not answerable to us, but they are answerable to some other people. So the concerns we are raising as Bunge la Mwananchi and Kenyans in general are not meant to be heard by the leaders in government, because they have given their ears to some other people. So we are very sure that even as we raise our concerns, they will not listen.
Are you therefore saying, I hear you saying rather that this budget is meant to meet the objectives being pushed by these multinationals you're talking about? Okay.
Yes.
Do they have a responsibility from your point of view?
Who? The multinational?
Yes. In terms of what is happening in the country.
Yeah, they are very much part of it.
How so?
The PS for finance worked for IMF. Nearly everyone around finance, the central bank governor worked for IMF and World Bank. The reason why I say they are part of this issue is if you develop the country and you do not need to borrow a lot of money from them, they lose control. And when they lose control, like in the last elections, I supported Azimio. But to the end of the campaign, I was sure we are not going to get the presidency because of the things my presidential candidate was saying. When you say that you are going to cut importation of second-hand clothes, then you look at how much money Americans and Europe makes from sending second-hand clothes here. It's a significant amount of money. And by sending second-hand clothes here, they are dealing with two problems at once: waste management and making an economic activity. They are raking in money. So that they give you this second-hand t-shirt that you will wear for a couple of months. It wears out. It's now your problem where you are going to dispose it. So if you have a leader, an African president, who really cares about his people, then these people will be very much unwilling to have such a president. Like you can see the comments they are making about Traore. I saw that General of America, AFCOM, is it AFRICOM, saying that the president of Burkina Faso is misusing the gold of Burkina Faso. Then I was wondering, what is his problem when a Burkinabe misuses resources that is in Burkina Faso? That tells you that they are very interested in what we have here, because it's what keeps them going. When Africa develops, immigration will change direction. They will be the ones coming here to look for jobs. And that's what they don't want. That's why they support people who are not so strong, people who do not offer any realistic solution to the economic problem. Like when President Ruto was asked at Chatham House in London how he was going to deal with the economy and make Kenya better, he said he will make sure that the opposition of the country is robust and strong. So how does that make the economy better? But Raila said, I will make sure that every county one product, so that we make Kenya a manufacturing hub. They definitely don't want that. You will cut importation. Their biggest issue is control. That's why you get a very brilliant person, but when they get into government, they suspend their brilliance, and you are wondering, what happened to this one?
Is it a case of suspending brilliance? And I want to put a point across here. When President Ruto took over power together with his then deputy Rigathi Gachagua, they were very, very clear, and they were so loud on the inheriting a depleted economy. Through the years, currently, the public debt, if you look at the bigger picture, the public debt now stands at 11.35 trillion.
Yes.
That's as of May this year. And this is up from 8.7 trillion Kenya shillings, which means there's an increase of 2.65 trillion Kenya shillings in under 3 years. Okay? That's 2.65 trillion. Now, what does that actually then mean? It means the higher taxes on everyday items, like we said, to service this debt, because we look at servicing debt, but they're not just servicing debt in terms of repayment of loans, but they are also paying for interest. Now, I was looking at a report. I was just looking at a report here, and when you look at it, it's a clear breakdown that what we are spending in terms of projected repayment obligations, 60% of what is collected as revenue is actually going into repayment of these loans. Then my question is, why are we taking more loans if we can't even afford to repay the ones that we already have? Because the reason why all this taxation debate is going on is because they have to pump in more money to repay. And I'll look at, I'm going to get the correct figure of how much. Yes, quickly. The year 2024-2025, the projected total debt was obligation was 1.854 trillion. Now, 843 billion, believe this, was for principal repayment. And then 1 trillion was just for interest repayment alone. So it's clear they're trying to draw money from all these different places to repay loans. So what do you think? Why do we keep getting into these loans?
Let me start from 2013, where President Uhuru took over. We were looking at how much money we collected for the period of 10 years from 2013 to 2023. The government collected almost 13 trillion, 13.5 around there. Then we looked at the expenditure of government for the same period of time. Then the government was seen to have spent almost 14.8 trillion. We collected 13.5. We spent 14. The deficit was almost 1.4 trillion for the period of 10 years. But the amount of money borrowed for the same period of time is almost 9 trillion. So we're asking questions. We needed just 1.4. Why borrow 8? Then I had Jimmy Wanjiku speak, and nobody has come forward to dispute what he said, that he hired auditors who came and did the audit of debt, and out of the 9 trillion, 6.5 trillion is not in our records. No parliament approved it. It did not come to our consolidated fund, but it is money that me and you are going to pay. 6.5 trillion for the period of 10 years. Hatujaguza William Ruto bado. Tuko kwa Uhuru Kenyatta pamoja na yeye akiwa deputy. So that means the borrowing is not actually meant to develop the country. Somebody profiteered from it, but then transferred the burden to the people. And the government is telling us that we are repaying debt that did not benefit the sovereigns of the country. So if this debt did not benefit us, then we are saying, why are we even paying it? It's illegal.
Yes.
No parliament approved it. We don't know who the lender is, which project, repayment status, both principal and interest. They are not clear. That's why I started by saying it's a siphoning scheme. It's not about actually enriching themselves. No. The only logical interpretation of that whole thing is just to make you be where you are. That's why every time when you ask, what has the government done? They will tell you, unga imeshuka. They want to put you in the food basket. That the only thing you wake up to think about is how to feed yourself. So the borrowing has become the new way of extraction of our resources. So that they borrow, they put it away from where it does not benefit us, but then it's us to pay it. Someone borrows money, It doesn't come through our consolidated fund, it goes to an offshore account, but then you and me are supposed to pay. That's why we are bitter about this whole issue. And this is the issue that is eating almost half of our budget.
And will that end? Let's assume Ruto is not president.
Yes.
Let's just assume he's not president.
Yes.
Whoever comes in, because this conversation, we have to project it into the future. Do you think that if Ruto, for example, leaves, you're saying we reject the finance
Which
bill?
you will.
Okay. So let's assume he's not in the picture.
Yes.
The next president who takes over, what are they going to inherit? Because we'll still continue repaying these loans with or without
Ruto at the helm.
So are we still seeing a situation where for the next 10, 20 years, 30 or 40, we still continue to pay this?
That's why we need somebody with a political goodwill to do the audit and say this is what we are supposed to pay, but this is not what we are supposed to pay. So we look at who was there when it was being poured over. If you are here, then you take responsibility. That's why it's very important, even as we sing Ruto must go, the person who is coming, what is he coming to do differently? Because what has William Ruto done to qualify to be a one-term president?
Indeed.
What has he failed to do? So we start by defining the problem. That this is where he has failed in managing the economy, and the biggest issue is debt. So the person who must come is the person who has a clear vision of how to deal with the public debt. And that, when you have such kind of clarity, out of the people with presidential prospects, you will have one person who you feel this one can deal with the problem that we are having. If we don't do that, even if we send William Ruto home, which I've said we will come back here and cry of the same problems under different president.
Okay, so those are the issues essentially that need to be dealt with. And I think it's important that we do. I mean, I say it almost sound like a broken record, but it's important that we do have those kind of conversations. And unfortunately, time doesn't allow us to go beyond this, but we want to thank you so much. Joachim Simiu, Governance Advisory and Policy Analysis Expert, Bungola Mwananchi, in 10 seconds.
Somebody sent me a text today and begged me to say this on this show. A person who worked for Equity Bank in 2005, and he's saying there is a substantial amount of money that they were scammed as employees. There was a program called Employee Shares Ownership Plan, which the employees, a total of 384, were convinced to buy shares, a total of 2.5 billion shillings, and the dividends of 1.1 billion. So from 2005 up to today, if that money is valued, it is almost 50 billion.
I think that's something that obviously, because we cannot verify that now, then we can't at this point use that as a platform, but it's something that we can look into. And unfortunately also our time is coming to an end.